Well, welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, I'm using my theater voice. So again, thank you, Yori. My name's Peter. I'm an arts advocate. And as Yori said, Yori sort of spoke about us in the third person, but really Yori and Dana have been integral members of this team since the very beginning and arts advocates very beginning. And really what you're going to find from listening today and from working with us, if you do continue, is that we're very much a flat organization. They're very much a collective, a collaborative. No one is here to lead or take charge or run their own agenda. We do everything by consensus. And if anyone steps up to do any, more work in any given time, it's just because of the bandwidth and what we have available to us at any given time, right? So to that point, we are going to be asking you later how you can help and how you get engaged. We're actively recruiting for folks to help with our core team and help plan events, advocacy, and other activities, and just get more engaged in a general way. And we really value diverse perspectives, and we'll get into that in a second. So welcome to our community briefing. Thank you all for coming today. I'm going to see if we can, if this PowerPoint will work. Yeah, everything's working great. Okay, so welcome. Since we're kind of a small group, we could just go around, and I don't like the belabored introductions, but if you could just say your name and really literally one sentence about why you're here today. So we're going to start right here and just go around the room.
Not open right this minute, but that's fine.
Thanks, Lisa. Rachel, you want to say hello?
Sunnyvale.
Hey, we cross-pollinate.
I'm hoping it's serious that I walk on.
Excellent. Yeah, please check out Rachel's work after we're done here, and check out all the studios work.
My name is Paul Gallo, and I'm a friend of Brendan's and Amanda's, and I have some time to donate. And I wanted to find a group of people that are in an arts group that maybe use some help, some bodies. So came to see what you guys are all about.
We'd love to hear it. Love to hear it. We're just doing a quick name and one sentence about what brought you here. Hey, nice to meet you.
The next one.
Oh, great. Excellent. Wyatt, you want to say?
Wyatt, I can call it come back, and as Dory mentioned on her training and becoming studio manager.
Excellent. Hello?
Introductions.
Yeah, name and why you're here.
Hi, I'm Eric Vasquez. I have a studio in the front here, multimedia artist. I teach elementary art, high school art, and I'm the print shop manager of this.
I'm Ron. We're just trying to check out the art scene.
Excellent.
Yeah. We're just love culture and we're here to how we can contribute and what it's all about.
Quick question. How did you learn about the event today? From
I've been lots of Eventbrite adjacent meetings.
Oh, great.
And somebody forwarded this to me.
Cool.
And so yeah, it needs to sort of scattershot out there.
Absolutely. That's great. Welcome.
I'm rent a space across the street at the Allegheny Harvard, about 40 of them. And I was trying to get more involved in the second Saturday and just get out more. So,
Great.
Hi, Paul Brent, Executive Director of Mossville Center, and we care about making sure our art community is stronger and has engagement with artists.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Roston. I work in public art and planning, but I'm part of this arts advocates group. I'm really glad to be all here.
Brendan Rossman is on the research center of GAP, and they've been involved with the center of advocacy.
Yori?
Really been the one Richard, Tuesday more and then morning wine.
Thank you. And then we had a guest just join us. If you want to say like, hi, what's your name and why you're here?
My name is Carson. I work for nonprofit. I've always had a non-friend and I've worked with several.
Feel free, yeah, come on in. We'll be nice and cozy today. There are some seats available if you want to grab a chair. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah. We'll definitely listen. Your space is right over here on by the school district. Okay, thank you so much. All right, hey. Oh, yeah. You? You're doing great. Your English is better than most of my family, so that's you're doing very well. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. Okay, so without further ado, I want to get started. And again, I don't think we'll take maybe a whole hour, but I think if you have questions, comments, I love a good conversation, and I'm definitely not here to dominate the conversation, to lead it. So really quick, a refresher course on what is SJAA. So San Jose Arts Advocates started out, as a lot of our folks know here, an idea, right? There was always this need and desire to have an avenue, to have a space where artists, arts advocates, arts patrons, organizations can come together as a creative community and collectively advocate for better arts funding, more support for the arts and culture from the public and from community, but primarily through government, local government, and foundations and other institutions, right? When I was on the Arts Commission some 10 years ago, this was something that Ron Muriera, who I was on the commission with at the time, we talked about. There were fits and starts of starting these kind of groups. There's been collectives there, and she can tell you, I'm sure SOFA has had many collectives in and of itself, right? But nothing really stuck. And no really reason why that is, other than we're all busy, right? We're all creative folks. We're all hustling, trying to make it work. So there's not a lot of time left for the advocacy and for fighting for additional support, right? But what happens then is that we don't have a voice at the table. We don't have a seat at the table, and decisions get made without us. And so we end up with sort of a perpetuating cycle of not a lot of support. But we're also not asking for this support, and our people in government don't know what kind of support we need, right? And we're not necessarily focusing on electing and supporting people who support us, right? That's what groups like, Library Foundation, Parks people, even the Bird Advocates, the Audubon Society, right, does a really great job of advocating. I see them show up at every single meeting when there's a big project, and they advocate for the birds, right? And no, I love birds, don't get me wrong, but if the Audubon Society can show up at every meeting, we can show up at every meeting, absolutely, right? Especially as creatives, right? Like, I think we can be more creative about how we engage, right? So anyway, SJAA was an idea. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right, thank you. SJAA was an idea for a very long time, and now it's actually a thing. So about 4 years ago, this is 2019, pre-pandemic, a few of us sent out a doodle. We got together at my house. We sat around a table and we talked about, okay, how can we actually do this? How can we, what are we going to do? How are we going to focus? How are we going to make sure we can maximize our bandwidth, but also have an impact? How can we get some key victories early on so we can prove the worth? And then how can we more broadly engage the artistic and creative community in not just advocacy, but also education, learning more about their craft, networking, developing themselves as business people, right? Artists as business people, and really just uplifting the entire community in our industry here in San Jose and beyond. So we got together in a very ragtag kind of collaborative way, and we pretty much stayed that way. We're not a 501c. We haven't gotten organized as an entity. We're not lobbyists. We're not a PAC, right? There's no board of directors. There's no executive director. We are very much a collaborative driven by all of us, right? We don't, as a core team, I think we've had a core team of anywhere from like 7 to 10, 11 people off and on over the past 4 years. It's rotated as people have had time to contribute. But one thing is sure, I forget if we've ever had like a formal vote on anything. We do everything by consensus. If anyone is squishy about it, if someone has a concern, we generally don't do it, or we have a really thoughtful conversation about how we do it, right? I want to really stress that. So it's not at all a hierarchy. It is very much, it's us, it's all of us in this. And then just real quick about some of the membership of our core team. We've got public art professionals, we've got executive directors of large organizations, we've got individual artists. We make sure that we have arts educators in our group. We make sure that we have folks from a diverse segment of our really diverse arts and cultural scene here in San Jose. So it's a really broad spectrum, but we're always looking for better perspectives and more perspectives, and we'll get to that. So that's sort of what we are. Any questions so far? Organizationally, we have, like I said, a core team that meets once a month about when we have time on Zoom. We used to meet in person. And we have a website, social media, all of this, and then a MailChimp for sending out messages that you get via email, right? So some basic infrastructure, but we have very little overhead. In fact, I think we got one $1,000 contribution from the San Jose fund. Or,
Friends.
yeah, I forget. Yeah, Austin San Jose. Austin San Jose gave us $1,000 4 years ago to start our organization and launch and do our launch party. We're still working off that $1,000 contribution. I think it basically pays for our website hosting every year on WordPress. So we're very frugal and we're making it work. And we do everything. We don't have a lot of money as a community, right? What we do have is people power. We have a voice. We have our art. We have our creativity, and that's what we can leverage to get more done and to really have a large voice in the things that get done. Other groups, they're going to have money, they're going to spend money and contribute to candidates. What we can do is bring people, voters, residents to bear, right? And let the people in power know that our people power certainly competes with the money of the big lobbyists, right? And we certainly need to be heard, and we can hold you accountable. Right? So what do we do as San Jose Arts Advocates? So when we came together, and this has been consistent, we've really tried, and we always have to come back to this because we're very excited and we want to do all the things. We have to come back to focusing on doing some really core things and sticking to those things in order to grow, right? We can do all the things if we have more people power, but while we're still growing, we need to focus and do the core things. So the 3 core things that we're trying to do, and we came together around wanting to do, is building public will for arts and culture. That means broader community, getting them more aware of the impact of arts and culture, not just as an add-on, not just as a luxury item, right, or a quality of life issue. Arts are an integral part of our economy. They're an integral part of our society, and they touch every industry. So really letting the community and our elected officials and people in power know, and building that will for art and for arts and culture around that. We want to amplify our collective voice. That means 2 things, right? One, it's yes, we want to be the avenue. We want, for all of those artists out there who are so passionate, have so much energy, it's just not your thing to go speak at a city council meeting, right? It's not your thing to show up and do something like this, right? And that's great. That's exactly, that's totally fine. What we want to be is a tool that you can use, and we want to amplify your voice. We want to hear from you about what your concerns are and what's impacting you as individual artists, especially at the ground level. And we want to reflect that in our advocacy, right? And we also, but if you're interested and you do have that in you, and we believe everyone has it in them, we want to give you the tools to be better advocates, right? We want to amplify your voice by giving you a voice, by giving you talking points, by telling you when to show up, where to show up, how best to communicate, what kind of tone to use, right? Now, we won't tell you what to wear, but you know what I'm saying, right? And we think our niche, like I said, and our unique avenue to advocacy is our creativity, right? Thinking outside the box about how we do it. Not holding a candidate forum where we have the candidates up on a stage and we ask them the same question: what is your solution to the housing crisis? Which they've answered 1,000,000 times the same way, right? What we tried to do, it didn't maybe have the best turnout because of COVID, but we had candidate speed dating where you could walk around and have an individual conversation with that candidate, talk to them one-on-one, ask them your very specific question about your very specific issue, and hopefully get a direct answer directly from the horse's mouth, as it were, right? So we try to think outside the box and do that in a different way. And then engaging our community, this encompasses, networking, development opportunities, collaboration, right? We recognize that as an arts community, we need to reach out beyond our community and get intersectional, right? Talk to people who advocate for parks, who advocate for libraries, who advocate for the birds, right? And build consensus with them around some common sense things we can do, right? Around development, housing, other areas that impact all of us, right? And arts, happen in parks, right? Parks are beautiful spaces for art to happen and for culture to happen. Libraries the same way, and vice versa, right? We can do arts education through libraries. We can do, education through parks. So making sure that we're collaborating, we're building beyond our networks, we can grow, but also giving you all opportunity to grow yourselves, to learn, to get better at advocating for yourselves. And if you're an individual artist, advocating, and that means an artist as a business, right? Learning how to sell yourself, right? Uh, what I've learned from, I've studied screenwriting in school. What I learned is you can have a great screenplay. You can have the most brilliant screenplay. You can write Citizen Kane. But if you don't know how to network, if you don't know how to get that in front of people, you don't know where to go. That's why I left LA, because I just didn't have the connections to get seen, right? And it's good. I'm doing this stuff now, and I absolutely love this work. But you know what I'm saying, right? That's something, another thing we want to make sure that we give you the chance to do. We'll do workshops. We'll do the vision is to do trainings and workshops on beyond just government, but also helping artists, individual artists advocate. So we'll have, the more people we have, the more things we can do. So hopefully we can do more of that in the future. But I was just taking a trip down memory lane while I was putting this PowerPoint together, and I want to briefly go through, like, these are the things we do. I want to show you how we implement that and how we've actually done that in person. So you'll notice, you might recognize this face in this picture. This is my wife looking very, very interested. I caught her at that time. She takes that as a picture. Anyway, same space. This is the same space literally 4 years ago. I'm sorry, 3 years ago, 2020, February 2020. We came together for our launch party, February 15th. That was literally 1 month before the COVID shut down, right? I haven't seen a party like this in quite a while, right? And you'll notice, like, a lot of us have masks today too, right? So this was our very first come together, our very first launch effort, and we launched this effort around the private percent for art policy. That was sort of our big advocacy launch, and we'll get into that a little more in a second. But what this is a policy at the city level that would basically dedicate funding from private development for public art in San Jose. Very simple, very simple explanation. You'll see we showed up, like, that's me, I think Amanda's on here, Brendan's here. This is Jessica from the School of Arts and Culture. There's Erin from Local Color, Yori. This is a policy that had been proposed a number of times to the city council, trying to get it on what's called their priority list, right, of the things that they direct staff to go and do and work on and craft, because there's so many policy ideas that they have to really focus and prioritize. We've been trying to get this policy prioritized for many years, 3 years in fact. Finally, with the help of SJAA, I believe, with our advocacy and our work contacting council members, showing up at the meetings, we got it prioritized. We got it on the list. It's still there. We'll talk about it in a second. We gotta get it unstuck, but it's still there. But this was a very early victory, like literally at the meeting on February 25th, 2020 was the meeting. What happened on March 16th, 2020, right? COVID shut down. What the heck do we do now? We've built up this great, group of advocates. They showed up. We've got all this momentum. All these people showed up at our, at our party. What do we do? Well, we had to transition. We had to go online. We had to do what everyone else did, right? And Zoom it out, right? So luckily 2020 was a big year for elections, right? So we did candidate forums, right? We hosted candidate forums for each of our council districts that were up that year. And again, sort of outside the box, where it wasn't just wrote back and forth. We really had a conversation with them. We developed, and Brendan hosted a couple of them. We developed, questions, but nothing, no script, right? We sort of just went with where the conversation was going and got them out of giving their normal 1, 2 minute, 30-second, clip answers, and really dove in. We didn't have a timer, right? We just let them talk, and if they wanted to talk themselves into a corner, they could do that. But for the most part, I thought it was a much better and more engaging conversation than your average candidate forum. We also did the candidate speed dating last year, which we tried out. Again, I thought it was really fun, even if we didn't have great turnout for a lot of reasons. But the candidates who were here really enjoyed it, and the people who showed up really enjoyed it. So hopefully we can do something like that again next year as we move into the elections cycle next year. And then we posted a few of these, actually 3 now so far. Meet your city council, right? So we knew that we were trying to get people elected, but there's people that are already elected, and we need to get to know them. They need to get to know us, right? So we've hosted Zoom forums with Matt Mahan, Raul Perales, when he was still on the council, who's a huge arts advocate, and then Sergio Jimenez, who's still on the council and can hopefully be an advocate for us. So Matt, this is even before he had joined the council. He had been elected but not joined the council, and obviously before he was mayor. So we had touch base with him. He knows who we are. But we'll be communicating with him a lot more probably this year, now that he is the head cheese, as it were. So we did a lot of this, and this is all online. And then we did a lot of budget advocacy. That's actually, when it comes to our advocacy, a lot of it happens around now, in the spring in the early spring and then spring and early summer when the budget is being discussed at City Hall and pretty much everywhere, county, state, everyone's working on their budget. That's when decisions are made about funding for grant programs, for arts and culture programs, for any specific programs that are going to happen in any given year. Also how tax funds and other things are allocated, right? So for the past 3 years, what we've had is we've been in pandemic mode. And what's happened is because most of our arts and culture funding comes out of hotel taxes and hotel stays and tourism dollars, that all went to heck, right? Zeroed out pretty much. So a lot of those programs were at risk of falling apart, dying off in any given year, or just zeroing out and leaving our arts community, holding the bag. And you see a lot more arts organizations folding. Luckily, the mayor was behind it, and Brendan, I know, organized a very large group of advocates to push for this. Over the past 3 years, we've advocated for COVID relief dollars, ARPA dollars, to go into shoring up our grants programs, shoring up the cultural affairs, making sure arts are fully funded. And we've succeeded in that the past 3 years. So there hasn't been a drop off in the grants program, and our arts and culture community is getting the support that they need to survive. Because at the end of the day, we know, at least in the nonprofit arts sector and the creative art and the for-profit art sector, the normal run of doing business barely pays the bills, right? If that. As a nonprofit, I know I work with nonprofit theater, ticket sales account for like 1/3 of our revenue, right? We need this government support. We need this outside support and foundation support. So we've been advocating for that the past 3 years. We've been successful. This year, those ARPA dollars are drying up, right? And the COT is the hotel tax is rebounding, but not to the point where it was. We need to figure out how can we get more dollars allocated now to support those programs so that they don't fall apart. And then collaboration. We've done networking and building community. We've done some work with a group called Catalyze SV, who some of you might be familiar with. We're doing another event with them later next month. They focus more primarily on smart development and growth. And they host visioning sessions, walking tours of different projects, right? And different proposals and different plans. And we did a visioning exercise with them around the Diridon station, where artists came in and facilitated little breakout groups talking to residents about what do you see for what happens with development around Diridon as Google comes in and everything else. And they didn't just have to say it and put bullet points out on a page to deliver to the city. They could actually visualize it. Artists could draw what they were seeing, paint what they were seeing. Give city officials a visualization of what people were thinking rather than just words on a page, right? And it really inspired a lot more creativity in the conversation. We're going to get into that in terms of our priorities about why that's important. And then we've also tried to engage and create safe spaces for open dialogue and conversation around controversial issues, right? You might recall a couple of years ago, there was an issue with public art at the airport. There was a piece that was what do they call de-accessioned or de-certified, decommissioned a little early because it rubbed a couple of police officers the wrong way, pretty much, right? And there was a big hubbub about it. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of back and forth and dialogue about what led to that and who was responsible, who was to blame. We didn't want to blame anyone. What we wanted to do was have a conversation about what happened, figure out how can we not have that happen again, right? So we invited the city manager, we invited the public art team from the city, we invited the artists, we invited our community to come together for a dialogue about, okay, what happened and how can we make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. And one thing that came out of that was that we put ourselves on the map to the city and the city officials as a resource. If you ever, and we tell, and every meeting I have with the city council member is, if you ever have a question, if you have a concern, if you don't know what's going on with arts and culture, and you just need more perspective, there is no better resource than us, than our community. Come to us. Here we are. And that's one reason why we were forming in the first place, is to be that resource, to be a partner in collaborating with the city as well, right? We want to serve on every committee. We want to be at every meeting, but we also want to be asked. We don't want to just have to force ourselves. We will. We'll put our shoe in the door every single time, but we also want to be asked. We want this to be a two-way relationship, right? Because if they're not asking, they're not interested. If they're not interested, it's going to be hard to get them on board. Okay. Woo! Oh, it's on that one. There we go. Okay. How y'all feeling? Good. Where are we at? All right. 11:30. Perfect. So I'm going to spend the next couple minutes, unless there are any questions to this point. Feel free to raise your Zoom hand or your physical hand. Okay. So I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking about our priorities for this year, and then we'll get into how you can help, right? And we'll get into some touch points about timeline and when things are happening. But first and foremost, I just want to say, again, going back to, this is actually, I'm keep pointing to Brendan because Brendan has been like my conscience. I'm the guy that wants to do all the things. I'm the guy that thinks I can do all the things. And then I realize, oh crap, I have a baby and a job, or, and my wife works full time and I've got a mortgage and I've got all these things, right? I got to do the laundry, right? I can't do all the things. No one person can do all the things. No one group can do all the things, right? Especially as we're trying to grow. So what I love about Brendan is he keeps bringing us back to let's do what we can do. Let's focus on the things that are most important and help where we can. But for now, focus on what we can do and get some things done, right? Because we feel like we've kind of been floating during COVID, right? We're doing a lot of education, a lot of workshops, we're engaging, but we're not really getting somewhere, right? So we want to get somewhere. So I'm going to run through three. We love threes, right? 3 key areas that we've decided we want to focus on this year, for better or worse, and see where we get. And then we'll assess as we get to the end of the year how we did. So our 23 drum rolls. So number 1, I mentioned this before, private percent for art. So getting back to a little backstory, really briefly. In San Jose, we have what's called a public percent for art policy right now. What does that mean? It means any public development, be it a convention center, a library, a new park, a public facility, a fire station, thank you, fire station, or most recently, a waste facility, right, the North County waste facility. Any public works project, 1% of the budget has to go toward public park. That can be direct contribution to a fund for public art that the city keeps, that provides for creation of artworks, paying artists, but also maintenance. We have 150 some odd public art projects already in the city, just installations that need to be maintained. A lot of them are digital too, which require even more upkeep. It would go into a fund, or there's actually art developed in public art, and Amanda can speak to this, because I'm sure she's worked on some of the projects. Art developed on site at the space to either draw attention to it, make it more attractive, make it more inviting of a space, or just engage the public around issues. For example, with the waste facility, a lot of the public art had to do with educating people about waste, right? About what you throw out, what goes to the water, what you know the water. What do you do with all that's been involved in doing that? If you go to the convention center, the idea tree sculpture out front, right, in the big plaza, that was a public art piece that was funded by that program, right? The big mosaic on the wall, that was funded by the public art program. However, we're just not getting a lot of public projects these days, right? Our library system is pretty much built out as it is now. We're not getting a lot of development happening. A couple new fire stations, but not a whole lot of infrastructure. The majority of this funding has been coming from the waste treatment plant because they're doing a lot of work up there. What we are interested in doing, and because there's so much private development happening in San Jose, and I'll carve Google out because they have their own little community benefit plan, but similar to that, we want to see an art policy passed to apply to private development, right? So 1% of every private development has to be contributed either to a public art fund or to doing public art in their space. That can mean a whole lot of things, right? We want to stress that we don't mean like you put a stylized shark sculpture in your lobby. Right? And I'm San Jose, it's a shark. So that's all nice. That's nice. It's very nice. We don't want to preclude the shark sculpture. You could do that. You could also create a space in your development for performance, for studio space, right? For shared space, for artists, for creatives, for the creative community. You can create any kind of public art. It can be lights, it can be thoroughfares, plazas. So many different ways that you can add that arts and culture to your space that aren't just a sculpture or a painting, which we actually encourage you to do on top of that, right? The good news is most developers are actually on board with this and they like this idea because they want to do it anyway, simply because they want their project to be more attractive, right? And they want to be able to sell their project better, but some are resistant, right? And the business community and others out there in the development community, some of them, they're lobbyists and their PACs say, oh, well, there's too many fees already, and there's too many things that we have to pay to support. And it's like, well, yeah, you're having an impact. Your big building is having an impact in our community by increasing traffic or bringing new jobs and people to work, but where do they live, right? So yes, there's housing impact fees, there's arts impact fees, and we believe there should be an arts and culture impact fee, right? It can be built in, but we believe it should happen. So the good news is we fought really hard and we got it on the list of policies that the council has prioritized for staff to take up. The city staff that works for the city council, or works for the city manager who works for the council, they're the ones that actually have to come up with the ins and outs and the nuances of how it's going to work, right? Then they bring that to the city council and say, okay, what do you guys think? The city council says, oh, I like this, I don't like this, can we change this, right? And then a final policy gets passed. Right now, it's basically, this policy is on what's called the backlog. Because during COVID, the priority list that they had before COVID, that we got on, went to the sort of back burner, because there were so many other priorities, which there were, right, of keeping our people alive, that we had to focus on, right, and keeping people afloat, right? So there's been a roadmap that's been guiding the city for the past 3 years. It's been COVID focused. They're going to continue that, but they've also recognized that they still had this list of priorities. They now call it the backlog, right? So it seems like things that can be done once things on the roadmap get done if we have the time. Well, the private percent for art, the beauty of that is that it's really the only policy that's going to be passed specifically to the Art Office of Cultural Affairs. Their staff is ready to go. They want to take this on. They've done the research. There are other cities locally, Mountain View, San Francisco, and Milpitas, Oakland, maybe. I want to say Oakland has one. Sunnyvale. So we have examples right here in our backyard of other cities that are doing this, and development hasn't completely dried up in Sunnyvale, I guarantee you, right? This is not going to, it's not going to be detrimental. In fact, it could spur more development in San Jose. So we very much want to get it off the backlog, get a policy drafted, get it in front of the council, and get something approved. We'd love it to happen in this calendar year, recognizing that sometimes budget processes get in the way. It could be next fiscal year, like 2024, 25, that it gets implemented. But we absolutely want to get it off the backlog, get it discussed, get it agendized, and so we can come and advocate and tell our council, this is what we want out of this policy, and this is why you should pass it. So at this point, our direction and our advocacy is going to be directed to council and to council members saying, hey, what can you do to get this off the backlog? Because the council is going to move staff to do the work. The staff's not going to take any of these things up on their own. They're not going to say, hey, we want to do this policy. They need council direction to move them. So we need to move the council to do it, right? So right now we're asking individual council members, if they're, especially if they serve on a committee like the Community and Economic Development Committee of the council, which oversees the arts, to push this forward, right? And to get this on the council's agenda. So hopefully we'll get something done this year. You're going to hear a lot about this, and we're going to need your help advocating when the time comes, when it gets on. Any questions? Oh, sorry. Any questions on private percent for ARPA? Oh yeah, we'll be out afterwards if you want to like chat. Yeah, for questions. But yeah, this is our bread and butter policy. This has been our policy for.
Sure.
That's a good question. You asked about scale. Like, could you just suck up all the money and pay an artist a bunch of money to create like some small thing or whatever? Or do you have to, how much are you going to see how much these developers have to invest in terms of scale? That's a really good question. I have a feeling that would come out in the crafting of the policy itself and the nuances of it. But that's something we should be aware of and not letting them get out easy, right? So. Yeah.
Also, that's all we're gonna do. Right, yeah, and if there's guidelines that we could suggest to them that developers have to go by, that we do with all the support that they're providing for developers. So.
Yeah, and absolutely, I would absolutely direct you not to, give her a burden, but Amanda is the absolute best resource in this room on public art. This is her life. This is her bread and butter, what she does. Also, on a subtext to this, by the way, and we'll get into it with one of the other policy priorities. Something we have a through line of through all of our advocacy is local hire or local artists, right? Leveraging local, they don't necessarily even San Jose, but at least using people from the Bay Area to create public art and create artwork in San Jose. Because we feel like you're going to know the community so much better anyway. I've been to so many, they call them charrettes, but meetings with potential artists for public artworks that are from out of town, right? Or from another part of the country. And yeah, they're great. They have great reputations. They've done great work. It's really great that we have them here to do work here. But they have to spend a meeting or 2 or 3 community meetings just getting a sense of, okay, what's this neighborhood? What's this community all about? And then they have to process that into their work. Whereas an artist who's from the community knows that innately, right? And yes, they'll have a community meeting, but they'll be able to communicate a lot better with those folks and understand the needs of the community a lot better, we feel. So we really want to stress that they, as much as possible, there is no local hire policy, but they do try to lean that way, but I mean, most places don't, right? So we really encourage them to go with local. Okay, TOT, hotel tax. So TOT stands for transient occupancy tax. Oh my God, it's like something out of 1984, right? Like bureaucracy of government. What is that? When you go to a hotel, when you go to another city, or you in San Jose, if you do a staycation, you'll notice on your bill, at the end of the bill, there's a surcharge. In San Jose, it's about 10% of your bill. And it's for entertainment, cultural, convention center. It'll say a lot of different things there. But here it's the transient occupancy tax, or the hotel tax. It's basically a tax that's paid, a fee that's paid by everyone who stays in a hotel in San Jose, especially downtown, but in San Jose, for any reason, right? That money, that 10%, goes into a fund at the city, or a special fund. And that fund gets allocated to various sources. Right now, 15% of that fund goes to arts and culture, to this Office of Cultural Affairs at the city. That funds their staff or salaries. It funds all the grant programs, funds all the other fun stuff that they do. The only thing it doesn't fund is operations and maintenance on cultural facilities, which comes out of the general fund, or the big pool of money the city has from all of our taxes. But the entirety of the Office of Cultural Affairs gets funded out of this special fund. I emphasize that because it's very unique. There are not a lot of departments other than like the airport that are funded entirely out of a special fund. Most of them get funded staff-wise out of the general fund because it's more, not sustainable, but it's more constant, right? We know what's in the general fund. Year to year, we don't know what's going to be in the hotel tax because it depends on hotel stays. And recently it's been, right? It's on the way back, but there's no guarantees about how far and how quickly it's going to rebound. So right now, even the Office of Cultural Affairs is funded in a very tenuous way. So only 15% goes to that. 15% of this tax goes to Team San Jose, which is basically our convention and visitors bureau, right, for San Jose. They manage the convention center. They manage, marketing, branding for the city, recruiting big conventions to come to town, right, and business events. So they do a lot of the work that gets these people to come and stay in our hotels, right? 30% goes to fund convention center maintenance on downtown theaters like the Center for Performing Arts, the California Theater, the Montgomery Theater, right? The ones that the city operates. And then 40%, the remaining 40%, for everyone doing math at home, goes to the general fund. Can be spent on whatever the city wants to do in the general fund. That wasn't always the case. I forget what the original percentage was, but 40% didn't always go right off the top of the general fund. That's happened because the city has found itself in structural deficits, budget deficits, and unfortunately, usually the first thing on the chopping block, the arts, parks, libraries, all the stuff I was talking about that really make the city, they're integral parts of the city. Well, usually they get cut first. And so over the years, this has been whittled down to now 40% going to the general fund to fund whatever. And it's all important stuff. Don't get me wrong. Lease salaries, fire salaries, all those things. Very, 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 very important. However, that's not what this tax is intended to support. It's supposed to be a reciprocal tax. It's supposed to support us so that we can grow it. And then, yeah, maybe give more to the general fund over time and generate more for the city. So there's a lot of concern around that. Brendan's done some great advocacy about that with not just arts groups, but entertainment, hospitality, businesses downtown, around looking at that 40% that's going to the general fund and how can we reallocate that? Can we reallocate more of that to arts and culture? Can we reallocate more to Team San Jose? Can we do more to support our industry rather than just lobbing into the general fund, right? This is a tax that we support, that we help to generate, so we should reap more of the benefit from it. And if our OCA or the department had more money, what could they do? They could give more grants. They could do grants to individual artists, more individual artist grants, not just organizational grants, right? They could give out more organizational grants. They could hire more people. They have so many programs, including Private Percent for Art, that we want to do. They need people to do them, right? They can't just be done by a computer, right? You can't just hit a button and things happen. They need staff to do them. So that's what this could fund. In addition to the Private Percent for Art, that could also be used to fund public art staff. So we are looking for more sustainability. The council is going to discuss this during the budget process. It is not agendized yet, but it's on their horizon. They're supposed to bring it up. Councilmember Perales, who I used to work for, full disclosure, this was not my doing. He was very, very supportive. He pushed to get this agendized to talk about this issue at the council during the budget process. So it is going to get heard, and we're encouraging council members to bring it up because it could very easily get lost in the shuffle, even though it was supposed to be agendized at some point. They have to have the conversation around the budget because it's a budgetary issue. So it's going to be happening very soon. We will tell you how you can advocate for that. A lot of this might be happening concurrently too with these policies. So just stay tuned and be aware of all that we can do. But this is a very important policy to be aware of. We'd also like to see eventually, we'd like to see the general fund dollars support the Office of Cultural Affairs. We'd like to see more sustained, because there are times when this tax is not going to be robust, right? There are times when it goes gangbusters, but during pandemic, and some of the times it's not so much. So this is not the most sustainable funding source either. We just want more of a piece of it because it's pretty much something that we help to generate, and we feel like we deserve it, frankly. Okay, 11:49, I'm doing really well. Final policy. I actually want Brendan to kind of speak to this a little bit, because this is something that you brought adding to the table, and I'm still not as maybe the best advocate for it. But artists in residence, this is sort of like a concept at this point that we would like the city to explore doing a pilot program with, and it involves basically not what you would normally think, but like a fellowship, right? An artist wins a fellowship, you get to stay at a retreat somewhere for a certain amount of time, put together an exhibit or a collection, right? And at the end of the fellowship, you present the collection, and that's the residency. This is more embedding artists and creatives in city government, in our departments, to bring more of a creative mindset to the city. And Brendan, if you want to speak to
Sure.
you've done more research than I have on.
Okay. So I think to Peter's point, the first two things, really trying to be very pragmatic about what things on kind of city council agenda coming up for this year. We knew we wanted to have one other third sort of topic, which was more exploratory for ourselves, and sort of thinking about, how might we help start seeding a conversation around this concept, and seeing, how we could be encouraging the city and our community to think about this idea. This is a way that you can basically try to create for a more creative city of San Jose. There's a lot of times you hear concern of the city of San Jose sort of governed by city attorney, but there's a culture at City Hall that's maybe not the most adventurous or supportive of taking on new ideas. There's plenty of the cities around the country that have adopted concepts like this. I think Peter was mentioning early on, we talked about the public percent for the art program that happened with the waste facility in North San Jose. And part of the idea there in terms of developing that was having an artist in residence in the public works department, thinking about this idea. How do we educate the community about water conservation issues, different types of things, and bringing a creative lens to thinking about how the city can be doing public works, whatever, it could be anything, obviously, Parks and Rec, or, transportation department, who knows what sort of realm. But this idea would be to see, could we develop a policy or work with the city to develop a pilot program to embed artists, or say a year-long residency program in city departments that typically wouldn't engage around the arts. And you could have them work with those folks to develop strategies around the issues that they're dealing with. So that's one that we look to try and shape over the course of the year.
Perfect. Yeah, and I've been thinking as we've been talking about this, and I've had a couple of meetings with council members so far, and they're like, well, what does that look like? One thing I could instantly comes to mind is the transportation department. We have a policy in San Jose called Vision Zero that we're working on, right? Trying to reduce traffic fatalities for pedestrians and severe injuries for pedestrians and bicyclists. They recognize that a lot of their work is community engagement and outreach and education, because some of the big causes are speeding and things that we can do ourselves, and recognize in ourselves to reduce those accidents. So one thing I can think of is they often struggle with, how do we reach out? How do we expand our outreach? How do we do that community advocacy? They just spent I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the Vision Zero team just spent a bunch of money with a consultant just to come up with a new logo, right? And they think, and I more power to them. It's a nice logo, don't get me wrong, but a new logo isn't going to solve the problem, right? So what we would like to see is people thinking a little more, and I hate to use this phrase, but outside the box, and thinking more creatively about how we do this engagement, and what more broadly than a logo can be used to really engage with people. And if anyone's ever been to a community meeting, a city community meeting, right, like a planning meeting about a development, our city staff are wonderful people. They are so smart. They're so dedicated. They do thankless work really, really, really well. They are not communicators, most of them, right? Most of them were not trained to do this stuff, right? They're not extroverts naturally, some of them, they're not built for community engagement, right? They can present, they can give you all the facts. But as soon as people start asking questions and developing conversations, when the NIMBYs start to come out, right? They're like deer in the headlights and they don't know how to react. I think artists and creatives embedded in these departments could train them to be better presenters, but also do the work, help them do that work, help them engage with the community better and give the city a friendlier face, because a lot of the times I think most of us sort of feel like it's just a bureaucratic monolith and they're not listening because they just don't seem like they are, right? They really are. They do care. I guarantee there's not many city staff that don't care about their job. They wouldn't take the job and get paid what they do for very little pay, a lot of work. They wouldn't do it if they didn't care, right? So one thing I like to stress is we just need to help them understand us better, right? We need to work with them and be more and help them be more friendly. So if we can do that through this program, I think that would. Exactly. There you go. So managers right around me, Oakland and Seattle are right, major cities, including one right here, have this kind of a program. So again, it's not something where we have to reinvent the wheel like with private business for art. We can show them an example of how it works. I had actually Councilmember Foley, who chairs the Community Economic Development Committee, who I spoke to just the other day. I told her about this policy. She was trying to wrap her head around it. She's like, oh, I kind of see how that works. We don't have to just tell her, we can show her how it works, right?
These are paid.
At 100%. That is a great point. What was your name? Stephanie, right? Stephanie had a great point, and it's another thing I want to stress that we always stress in SJAA. Artists don't work for free.
Yeah.
Hell no. Even when we do things, we talk about like, okay, we want someone to design like a flyer for us. Can we pay them at least a little bit of money to do it, right? Out of that $1,000 that we have, right? Even we're looking at how to do that, right? We don't want any artist working for free. We want any of you working for free. Your time is way too valuable, and your your passion, your creativity, your gift is too valuable to give up, right? So one thing we're stressing while we're teaching artists to be advocates for themselves, right? Don't work for free, right? You don't have to, right? If you're getting offered a gig, ask if there's at least a stipend. Like, what are you offering for the artist? And if it doesn't work out, it might be a great opportunity, but you have to make that assessment for yourself. But I really stress, don't sell yourself short. I do that too much as a consultant myself. My wife tells me I need to charge more, and I'm just super nice. I'm like my friends, I do free projects all the time. She's like, no. This is your time. This is what you do. Respect it, right? So respect your own work as well, and make sure you're getting paid. Great question. These are absolutely paid positions. I would love for them to be a full-time for like a year or a longer position, right? Or at least a part-time a benefited position, right? Where they can get healthcare, right? When they're in there. They don't have to have another job, right? That can be their job for them. That's how those fellowships work, right? You don't have to work for the year, you get enough grant funding and support. So how are we going to do this? So real quickly before we're wrapped up, first thing is council member meetings, actually direct, I don't say one-on-one because all are welcome, but really intimate advocacy with our council members. For those of you who don't know city government so well, we've done some sessions on this. The city council is 11 members. One of those is the mayor. Okay, so he represents me now versus she. He represents the whole city, right? And then there are 10 council districts that are subdivided based on population. On average, each council district is about 100,000 people, and we're a city of 1 million, right? So each council member represents about 100,000 people. Out of those 100,000, about half of them are registered to vote. So 50,000 registered voters. Out of that 50,000 registered to vote in an election like last November, for example, I forget what the final turnout was, 40%. So you're talking like 10,000, 50,000 people are making decisions of who represents districts of 100,000 people, right? Little backstory on how our elections work. That means more people need to turn out and vote, in other words. So there's 10 council members and 1 mayor. The mayor doesn't have any veto power. The mayor is not an executive. The mayor can sort of set the agenda. He can sort of set the agenda for the budget process, but he has no more power than any other council member. When they come to vote, he's just one more vote. So you need 6 votes at any given time to pass anything at City Hall. Right now, as of this year, like January this year, there are 6 out of those 11, 6 council members who have never served before in the council before January of this year. Some of them were elected last year, 4 of them were elected last year, and we just appointed 2 to replace one, the mayor, who left his council seat, and then Sylvia Orenas, who's on the county board of supervisors now, who left her seat in Evergreen. So we just the council just appointed 2 people to fill those seats. So there are 6 brand new council members who've never heard from us, most of them, a lot of them, unless they've been to our candidate forums, and really don't know our issues, right? So it's imperative right now, we need to get in there and explain those issues, explain these priorities to them and assess where they're at on these things. So right now we are conducting, you're welcome to join. I've got dates I can send you out. If anyone wants to join me on these. This is sort of my bread and butter because I used to work at City Hall. I love this kind of work. I know these folks up on the 18th floor, as it's called at City Hall, which is where the council offices are. You'll hear that a lot, up on 18. I used to work up on 18. So this is my jam. I love this stuff, but I would love for more folks to join and add a voice to the conversation. We're right now meeting with all of the council, not just the 6 newbies, and just getting a sense of on these 3 priorities. I mentioned like what we need. Can you help? Will you help? Especially with folks who serve on, like I said, the right committees and have the right connections. Omar Torres is the new council member for District 3, which is downtown. He's the new Arts Commission liaison. So ostensibly, he is sort of the lead on arts issues. It was formerly Magdalena Carrasco when she was on the council. She actually works for him now on his council staff, oddly. So that will definitely more than likely be our lead office when it comes to a lot of our work, because Omar gets our issues already. He understands it. He's been there advocating for us. He's from the community, he's from Washington neighborhood. He knows our work. He knows how we do our work. So he's going to be a great advocate for us, but we really need to educate about everyone else at this point. Other than a few council members, 2 of them are turning out next year, right? So they're going to be gone. We'll have new council members for those districts soon enough. So we have to do a lot of education work, and that's why we're realizing this year is very important. We really need to ramp that up. So we're going to be doing that. We'll provide updates on more intimate updates on where things go with those things. We're trying to keep those conversations private, right? We don't record them. We like to let them be as honest as possible with us, but we do want to provide the feedback to you on where they stand, and we're going to find out pretty soon. Like I said, budget advocacy or just advocacy in general, but primarily the budget season is right now. So for example, this Tuesday, March 14th, right? The city council is considering, not voting on, not approving anything yet. They're considering what's called the mayor's March budget message. This is the one piece of power that the mayor does have. The mayor can, at the start of the budget season, take a look at the budget and propose ideas, policies, funding sources, and projects that he would like to see or she would like to see in the budget, right? A laundry list, right? The city council considers those, offers their feedback, but at the end of the day, they basically just accept it, give it to the city staff, and then the staff actually tries to integrate that into the budget.
You're back, you're.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
How many sites?
Not too many, so I should last. Thank you. So, no, thank you. So we're going to send a note out on Monday for folks to show up at that meeting. You can come on Zoom, no problem. It is middle of the day. If it came in the budget, it's a 1:30 meeting. But occasionally we'll have evening meetings starting around 6. We'll let you know when those happen. But this is a great first opportunity just to put the word in for arts and culture. You don't need to know the specifics of what's in the plan yet. I think it just got released anyway. But really, we should need advocates in the room just to speak up for more attention to arts and culture, making sure that arts and culture is fully funded. That's our #1 talking point. It keeps it very general and very broad. Make sure arts and culture are fully funded, at least carrying over last year's budget, but fully funded. That's our big talking
You
point.
say you show up at the Zoom meeting, what do you need to do to make sure, just being a name?
This particular meeting, again, it's more of like a study session than anything else, so they're not making decisions here. So really, it's just being a presence, like, hi, I'm an artist, I'm in San Jose, these are some of the issues that I'm facing, whether it be housing or other opportunity. And I would love for you to see more funding, more attention to these issues and full funding for arts and culture programs in San Jose. It's a great question. And you don't even need to necessarily speak, right? If it's your first time going to a public meeting or zooming in, just listen, absorb, see how it goes. Public meetings are really, especially city council meetings, can be really tedious. They can be a little hard to understand, like where things are at and how things are going to go. So sometimes it's good just to experience it, get the flow of the meeting, learn Robert's rules, right? Motions and seconds and all that stuff. That's the stuff we try to help you all navigate through. So if you ever have any question about how the meetings work, you can always ask, but the best way is just to go and participate in this blog. And you can also watch meetings, you watch recordings on YouTube, the city's YouTube page. You can watch meetings and review things that happen on YouTube.
And how do you find out how to get into the things? Just on their website?
Yes, yeah, we'll share it too, but if you go to sanjoseca.gov, it's the city's website, there's usually a link right on the homepage there for watch meetings. And you can go to Zoom. You can just watch on YouTube if you want live. You don't have to zoom in. You only have to zoom in if you want to comment. And now you can attend in person again. So they are actually having in-person commenting, but they're trying to do it hybrid. The county, unfortunately, is doing all in person, which is kind of a pain. Because I think the Zoom option has been a godsend to advocates. And then April and May timeframe, they'll have community budget meetings, which means they actually go out into council districts and have physical meetings like this in a community center. So we would love for you to show up in your neighborhood and in your community and advocate, do the same kind of things. We'll know a little bit more about what's in the budget by that point, so we can give you talking points about specific things to advocate for, right? So we'll let you know when those dates are happening. And there's usually a series of them, both on Zoom and in person. So you'll have opportunity to contribute. And then finally, what we ask is for one, yeah, okay. Exactly, yeah, we will send out on our list the whens and the wheres and all of that. And you can you'll be able to go to the city website and find that information too. But we want to share that with our network because we know it's sometimes you go to the city website, it can be hard to find sometimes. So, and then if there's anything that at the end of the day, when the budget gets the next round of the budget gets proposed in like May, sort of the final-ish budget, the staff comes back and says, this is what we want to do. If there's anything in there that we don't agree with or we do agree with, right, we're going to want to advocate around that. Either say, thank you, please include this, please vote for this, or why didn't you do this? We would like you to include this. That'll happen usually through individual council members issuing what are called budget documents or budget addendums. They will basically have to send in a memo that advocates for that specific thing, and then it can get discussed for addition into the budget, right? That's generally how it works. So it'll be some nuance, it'll be some quick turnaround of like finding some council advocates who are willing to put forward some of our ideas, and then we'll let you know about who we need to pinpoint, who are the council members who are kind of swinging, not really sure how they're going to vote, right? We'll want you to talk, send them an email, call them if you can, but more likely send them an email and let them know, where you stand, that you're part of our group. We'll have, template emails, we'll have all the change.org petitions, we'll have all that, make it easy for you, right? You just hit one click and send it. You can hit one click and add your name and add your little personal circumstance if you want, but we want to make it as easy as possible. And we mostly just want to show them volume, right? City staff and especially council staff, they're very overworked. I can tell you that from personal experience. There's a lot going on any given day, so it's really hard to read every little thing that you right. So a lot of times it doesn't even so much matter what you say, frankly, it's just that you say. And they'll staff will report to their council member, we have this issue coming up on Tuesday. We got 15 emails about it. We got 3 emails against, right? They won't ask like, oh, what did they say specifically? It was more just like, we got this number of emails, because they just don't have time to read all of them, right? So we'll remind you of that. You don't need to write like a Russian novel, or you don't need to write the new War and Peace. You just need to put yourself out there and be a part of our collective voice. We'll do the heavy lifting for you. We just need you to show up when the time is ready. And then finally, on collaboration, we're going to have some fun opportunities to collaborate and do some cool projects in the near future. One thing I want to point out is coming up really soon, April 7th, a Friday night. We're gonna have a fun walkthrough reception, little snacks at Exhibit, which is a new housing development in Japantown that some of you might be familiar with. They actually worked in collaboration with the community, the developer did, with Empire 7 Studios, who were located on that site, an arts entity that was located on that site. They worked with them to integrate Empire 7 into their building, their shop, their studio, integrate artists in a creative mindset and space, like I said before, right? Creative space into their project to create this beautiful piece that's embedded in the Japantown community, a part of the community, and it's of the community too. And I think Brendan and Amanda was like a block or two away from it. That's really the prototype for us, I think, of how arts and private sector can work together going forward, especially around private placement for arts. So that's April 7th. We'll send out an RSVP for that soon. We're just working on Catalyze SD is leading on that. So we're working on their promotion and their calendar. So as soon as we have the link, we'll send it around to you. And then I want to give a shout out to, in this box, I have slides, but for now, my computer might die. Arts Advocacy Month is April. And we partner with Californians for the Arts, who is our statewide sort of partner. On Arts Advocacy Day in Sacramento. They've expanded that to Arts Advocacy Summit. So there's going to be a big arts summit on Monday, April 17th, and then a big advocacy day Tuesday, the 18th. If anyone's available and has some free time and wants to take a trip up to Sacramento, we're willing to work out like carpools and figure out a way to get people there. But there are virtual opportunities to advocate and to meet with our local state legislators and advocate for more funding for the arts from the state level. Right, there's a California Arts Council. There's a lot of grant programs and funding programs at the state level, especially for individual artists. We want to see more of that. They also have they've had a recent problem with equity and seeing things from a DEI lens. They're working on that. But it's great that we have us to advocate for that as well too. So stay tuned for that and more opportunity to participate in Arts Advocacy Month. There's going to be activities all month, but the big dates are the 17th and 18th. That's when the big summit's happening, and then Advocacy Day, when actually advocates will go around to the offices in Sacramento and like meet with legislators and their staff, kind of like I'm doing with the council members right now. Right? So, all right, and ideas are welcome. If you are involved in an organization or another community organization, your Rotary, right, or Kiwanis Club or anything, right, and you want to partner with us, or you want to find a way that we can help, work with you to educate your members, or to work with your members, or recruit some of your members to help us out, please let us know. If there are other organizations we should be partnering with, or other events we might be able to partner on, or if you hear of a panel that could use an arts voice, right, let us know. We'll reach out to them and say, hey, would you like someone to come and sit in that panel? So please never hesitate to reach out to us. So how you can help: show up, right? We want to make sure creatives are there and have a presence in every meeting possible with bandwidth, understandable, right? Any place where the arts are relevant, and that's pretty much everything. We want you to speak up, help us raise our collective voice, right, at our city hall and everywhere else, and join us. This is the most important thing. So right now, we're in a space where we could use more support on our core team. We've got some members who have a lot going on, right, including myself, frankly, and we're not always going to have the bandwidth to do everything we want to do, even our focus areas, right? And this group is only as strong as our people come, right, as the people involved. So humbly, I would ask that if you do have a couple hours a month to contribute, we would love to have your support on our core team. All comers are accepted. There is no job description. There are no demographics that we require. We want people who are passionate about this work, who can bring their own perspective, but also work collaboratively with the team and help us raise the bar and move the needle. Okay, so if you are interested in doing that, this is more on arts and culture. I'll get to that in a second. This is the email: hello@SJAA Move this thing down. There we go. That's our email address. You can reach us there anytime. This is our website. You can sign up for our mailing list there if you haven't already. We have a calendar of upcoming events there. We'll post our advocacy talking points there. Anything you want to know is on our website. It's hard to keep up sometimes because I think myself and Julia are webmasters. We both have babies, so it can be a challenge. And then but also social media is also a great way just to keep tabs at San Jose Arts. We're not giving this back to the city. Well, we never stole it from them in the first place. We just got it. They wanted it, but we're keeping it. There's San Jose Culture, by the way. If you want the city's department, San Jose Culture, we're San Jose Arts. So you can find us on Facebook, Insta, Twitter, if it's still there. We haven't joined the TikTok revolution yet. We never joined Snapchat. So, but those three places, Insta and Facebook, for sure, you'll find our information. And then I think that's pretty much. Yes. Oh, so real quick, speaking of CFTA, this is a webinar that's coming up next week that we'll send more information out about how to engage in arts, culture, and creativity month, right? How to do more engagement. So we will send this link out to you all so you have it. Just wanted to give that shout out to them. And CFTA is a fantastic resource. Please become a member, join their mailing list. If you want to know more about what's happening at the state level, they're definitely the place to go. We partner with them, but we're also trying to, recognize our own bandwidth and focus here. So, okay, let me see. Thank you. And then this, if you want to scan that goes to our website. Very fancy. Thank you. I'm going to talk for all of you.